Stay tuned to discover why rewilding doesn't necessarily begin with large swaths of wilderness or mega-toothy species like wolves, but can take place just about anywhere, including your back garden or balcony. Stick around to discover new exciting ways to reconnect with nature and why it all starts with our skin, as well as how moonwalking wasn't just a Michael Jackson dance style, but can transform the most familiar walking spots from the mundane to the magical. Whether you're here to tune into nature, get into the habit to read more, or turn insights from climate and nature experts into meaningful action, you've made a great choice by being here, and thanks so much for tuning in. This is episode 12, in which I'll be exploring with you guys the book Rewild. The book Rewild, The Art of Returning to Nature by Nick Baker. Coming up next, I'm going to be talking about this book and the sense of who's it for, who's the book perfect for essentially, as well as the 3 biggest key takeaways, what it inspired me to do next, as well as why it deserves a place on the bookshelf of 101 books to save the planet and ourselves. So if you, like me, are conscious that as us humans we are increasingly spending the majority of our lives indoors, becoming disconnected from the nature and the world around us, then I'd say this is a really good book, because it's a toolkit in which we can learn better ways to reconnect with nature, and it definitely had some ideas that I hadn't found in any other book. The first key takeaway for me from this book Rewild is that rewilding and the incredible movement and momentum it's building within the UK and around Europe and the rest of the world is that it's not just reserved for environmental NGOs, charities or people with large swaths of land. It is something that we all have the opportunity to engage in. And whether we have just a balcony or a back garden or a communal garden, we all have the opportunity to engage in rewilding. And that's such an exciting concept. So as Nick says here on page 34, strip it back to its most defining action, and the principle of rewilding can be as simple as just letting the corner of your lawn grow up a little bit longer than usual. In this book I found Nick's point super interesting, in which he said on one hand we have surveys showing that 4 in 5 Britons support rewilding and 83% of us support our national parks in the UK to become more wild, which is fantastic. But on the other hand we have many Britons who seemingly really unwilling to let their lawn grow or grow a tolerance to nature in their own gardens, and would rather sort of bring the lawnmower out every Sunday or Saturday. And Nick does say in the book, and he says, isn't it a bit hypocritical that we support environmental campaigns bringing back beavers in our rivers, but we're unwilling to allow the grass to grow in our own back gardens? So if this has got you thinking, where can I start? How can I start to be part of the rewilding process? Well, put the lawnmower down. Leave the lawnmower, the spade, and step away from any garden chemicals, period. That's the first step. Step 2, put up a bird feeder perhaps, or a native shrub is really helpful, or some wildflowers as you can see behind me, and introduce even maybe some frog spawn. There's so many different things you can do. And whether you take one action or whether you take all of them, you are effectively doing the same as proposing to introduce a beaver into a river. A rewilding purist would say to rewild is simply to leave alone. The second key takeaway from this book Rewild was how we can all better reconnect with nature, and how it all starts with our skin. When was the last time you touched the rough bark of a tree with your hands, with your skin, or kicked off your socks to feel the cool grass and the soil in between your toes? In the chapter Getting a Feel for Things, chapter 14, Nick reminds us that our skin is one of the most effective ways in which we can reconnect with nature. We can think of those 2 square meters of skin like a sort of portal in which we can reconnect with the nature around us, and we really shouldn't underestimate the opportunity our skin gives us. The increase of depression, illnesses in our modern world can be reduced by spending more time in direct contact with the earth. Just 30 minutes a day, sitting on the ground, walking around barefoot, can make all the difference. It really is a magic elixir and a way to reconnect with nature, and it's totally free to do, which is even better. Did you know that barefooting can help prevent insomnia or even improve your sleeping patterns? Studies have even suggested that walking barefoot on grass helps to synchronize our heartbeats, something we do so naturally as kids, get on the ground and go bare feet and get all dirty in the mud and reconnect with the natural surfaces. That is how we do it. Touch the rough bark of a tree, and we unlearn that all as adults. So getting back to that, final key takeaway was how moonwalking wasn't just a Michael Jackson dance style, but is an incredible way in which we can transform our most familiar, sort of mundane walking spots that we've done time and time again to something totally magical and different. In the chapter, it's called Darkness is Light Enough. Nick encourages us to turn off our phones, tear ourselves away from the Netflix series, and to simply the trappings, he calls it, of modern day life, and step into the moonlight to rediscover something that we've lost, and to test our senses, if you like, to tap into our night vision. And yes, we do have night vision. I loved this quote by Nick in which he says, "Our modern world effortlessly and rudely pushes into the dark hours. As a species, we've managed to stretch the day into the night with artificial illuminations." On page 61, Nick says, "Being able to night walk, to step into the cool air, allows us to take back something that is rightfully ours. At its most fundamental, it's calming, a moment to decode and regain clarity." So what did the book Rewild, The Art of Returning to Nature, inspire me to do? So me and my hubby tried moonwalking. We were living in Wales at the time, we were living in the Brecon Beacons, and we had a walk up to the Alt, which is a hill climb right to the top, and you can look over the Brecon Beacons. It was an incredible walk, and I wouldn't say it was mundane, but it was something we were very familiar with. We'd done 20 or so times in the day, but we wanted to try it at night, and we wanted to try the moonwalking, so we did. And it really was a great experience, something I can only recommend trying, to test your senses and to reconnect with nature. It transforms landscapes from the day into the night, and we so, particularly in our modern lives, are so familiar with just staying indoors, watching TV or working, and we let the illuminations of our technological lives sort of inhibit on the natural way our ancestors will have lived for much longer than the modern lives we now live in, would have let the night fall on them. So why does this book deserve a place on the bookshelf of 101 books to save the planet and ourselves? Well, in the UK, despite the fact that we have 50 national parks and 224 nature reserves and thousands of others, we are still hemorrhaging biodiversity. So in order to have any kind of future, there's a re-evaluation of our natural world, and our place in it has to happen now if we have any chance of turning this around. And as Nick says in the book, unless we rewild our hearts and our minds, in which this book gives us the toolkit to do, we, no matter how hard we try, how many conservation projects we have, no matter how many national parks we put up, we are going to continue to have conservation and rewilding efforts that are to no avail. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about the book Rewild, The Art of Returning to Nature, and to Nick Baker for writing such a great book that inspired me in so many different ways. I hope you've enjoyed the backdrop of Slovenia behind me during this Cream Pages. I'm here in Triglav National Park, and it's been wonderful to sit here amongst the wildflowers and the insect, and I hope that's inspired you in some way. I purposely picked this backdrop for talking about the book Rewild, because I hope it inspires you in your own gardens into what's made possible when you simply leave nature alone. I hope you can join me for the next episode, in which we're going to be talking about the book Wilding, the return of nature to a British farm. A beautifully written memoir and account tells us the story of an exhausted, intensively farmed land, becoming a rich ecosystem through the art of rewilding. In West Sussex, this project has become a leading light for conservation in the UK. This is a story of hope that I cannot wait to share with you all, so tune in for next time. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel.